is a scientist. He's a real doctor. That's why we call him Dr. Jack. Let's get you mic'd up, doctor. And Jack and I met at a conference in the a very small event about mysticism. Let's call it this way. Hi, Jack. How are you? Great. Right. And you also came to. You have to talk in your mic. Yeah.
Test.
You have one here too.
Yeah.
So you don't need that.
No. This I'm recording.
Oh, you're recording yourself. More technology.
Important.
Okay. And Jack came to, we'll talk about that a little more, but we organized also with Miguel, we seated right here, a vision quest in Bacalar in Mexico. And Jack came here, and some people think I'm a little extreme in my experimentation sometimes. So I did 5 times no water, no food fast for 4 days. And Jack did 8 days. He has these photos of him like a skeleton, I don't know. Anyway, 8 days, pretty good. You like to go to death?
It's cheap, and very low maintenance to do, and good on the supply chains as well, as they get strained over time.
Jack is the modern druid, you know, for those who know what druids are. Jack, you have, as you know, 19 minutes left.
Okay.
He said I need 2 hours.
I might need a clicker.
Yeah, here you go.
19 minutes. So
yeah, no, you can happen. Do. Yeah, I mean, you feel it.
Cool.
You feel it. Then after you, we have a break, so.
Yeah, right.
Dr. Jack.
Thank you. Okay, these are my affiliations. I'm a pharmacologist and a neuroscientist and a research fellow in the Department of Pharmacology at Melbourne University. And I'm also an engineer. I founded a tech company in 2019 around the technology invented during my PhD, which is based on machine learning, to augment consciousness research studies for sleep science, psychedelic pharmacology, and ecophysiology. I also have many collaborations through my tech company with many labs working on psychedelic science in the UK, in Australia, in the Czech Republic, working all sorts of compounds from DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, novel psychedelics, ketamine, and more. So I like to focus on consciousness on many verticals, as many as possible. Starting from ecophysiology, we've got studies in Alaska on hibernating brown bears, trying to work out whether hibernation is sleep or an altered state, as well as geese in the Netherlands and elephant seals in Santa Cruz. And then I also study peak experiences like free diving. We've got patches on free divers trying to work out what happens at depth. Going all of the way to sleep science, which is the endogenous psychedelic state that we all experience every day, and psychedelic science, which is instead induced with chemicals, all the way to silicon-based intelligence, which is becoming more and more prominent day by day. So a very important thing I realized over the years is that technology has never developed linearly, and Nicole really made a point with this. This plot explains how everything started with the first technology we're talking about now, which is life. This was a long time ago. And then we got all of the way to cells, eukaryotic cells, reptiles, primates, Homo sapiens, and you see that this is not really like, this is accelerating a lot, to the point that it doesn't even really look exponential. It's beyond that. It's like a complete cliff. Like even Homo sapiens are rising and computers are really on the same line. And at the end of the line, there's personal computers, which was a few decades ago, and this is really not slowing down in any shape or form. And so artificial intelligence is seen as a disruptive technology, but it's much more than that. In a way, it's actually termed a general purpose technology, meaning that you can use that to build other technologies like electricity. And so it's actually going to rewire the entire ecosystem of everything that we use for problem solving. And AI itself is modeled around evolution. It has a minimum viable capacity for learning, just like humans. We're not necessarily designed to use computers or even to read. We only started reading just a few thousand years ago. Our genome is hundreds of thousands, it's not millions of years old. But there was like a little kernel there that made us competent for reading. And then after that, everything really comes about in a way that is absolutely unpredictable, and it's not even reliant on genes at that point. AI has the same. It has the capacity for learning. And after that, it's a complete Pandora's box. We can't even predict what we'll be able to do. And the constant mutations to its parameters, for those of you that know what parameters are in the function, the optimizers for outcomes, they're constantly tweaked by the classifier to augment performance. And this is constantly iterated at the speed of light, almost. And it really parallels what happens with the mutations to base pairs in the genome. So AI itself is adapting on an evolutionary dynamic. And the Baldwin effect ensures that it completely adapts to everything that we throw at it. The Baldwin effect is basically an offshoot of evolution where the outcome of an organism actually ends up rewiring the genes itself, just like the learning capabilities of machines. And so what? Like, why should this even matter? The optimists say that this will free humanity. You know, after the machines take all of the jobs, we will be free to do the arts, eat grapes, have sex, and anything else that we can possibly conjure. Well, these were the expectations just a few years ago from the intellectuals at the time. John Maynard Keynes said in 1930, for the first time since his creation, man will be faced with his permanent problem: how to use his freedom from pressing economic cares, how to occupy the leisure, which science and compound interests will have won for him, to live wisely and agreeably well. Sounds quite pleasant. And then this is more the reality of the intellectuals today. Rather than being bored to death, our actual challenge is to avoid anxiety attacks, psychotic breakdowns, heart attacks, and strokes, resulting from being accelerated to death. So it seems that the simulation didn't quite play out too well. And why? You know, like, the machines have the potential to really free up from all the boring things, but this is not really happening. And this is because of the Javen's paradox, which is these very funny things within humans. The humans are relatively demanding, greedy, and jaded. They adapt to almost anything. Hedonic adaptation is ever present, and so this is modeled on fuel. So the more fuel becomes cheap, it's not that people save the money and do other things. No, they just drive more. They just like, you know, since fuel is cheap, I'm going to go on holiday more often. I'm going to go there, I'm going to go here. So the more things become available and the barrier to entry lowers, humans just end up doing more and more and more. So this is actually an issue, because that means that, you know, the more technology makes everything easier, we'll just end up consuming more. And the supply chains will become even more effective at extracting everything and anything out of something that can be augmented, which is one planet. And this is also pretty ironic. A few scientists went back in time and looked into the literature and whatnot and found out that actually medieval peasants, and the Middle Ages are supposed to be the grimmest time in history, they actually had far more free time. Not just free time just to be and suffer, but actually more free time to be having fun and spend time with the family and play around. There was enough food even to care about these things. Like, it was quantified that they were working nearly 153 days a year, more or less. And when the sun goes down, again, no work. And, you know, in winter, like, yeah, I'm just going to eat whatever I caught during the summer. Like, this is crazy. There's people that have like 2 weeks a year off these days. Like, this is mind-boggling. These are medieval peasants. They're supposed to be the most miserable people in history. Like, so what is that doing to the job market? Well, this is a plot that Kai-Fu Lee, the ex-CEO of Google China, put together about all of the jobs that are probably going to be disrupted. And he was an optimist. This was a few years ago. He put the jobs in these 4 quadrants, like the safe zone, the danger zone. All these jobs are basically doomed. Right? Radiologists, they look at pictures, try to find diseases, but a machine, of course, be much better at that. Can find crazy things with low resolution even. Or like tax preparers, you know, telemarketers, all these things are already gone, like basically. Then there's like the slow creeps, like columnists, you know, ChatGPT, again, oof, destroy that. And medical research, scientists, sadly, there's many things that you can just ask a machine and even coordinate studies and whatnot. That can be automated. Artists, artists, don't have to explain you that. Graphic designers, yeah, whatever. And then there's the human veneer. Those are the jobs that really you wouldn't want to displace, because you really want a human to come. If you are on a deathbed, you want a nurse really to put a catheter in you. A robot coming just like this just wouldn't be as pleasant and nice. Or like I really, for how much I'm charmed by technology, I wouldn't want strippers to be automated anytime soon. I think that those jobs will be safe. And I'm not really suggesting that any of you would necessarily have to look in that direction, but that would be a safe one if you're particularly scared. And then we've got the so-called safe zone, right? Like social workers, psychiatrists, PR director, concierges. I guess a robotic concierge would be a bit weird. And then CEOs, right? CEOs were seen, those were really. But even AutoGPT now can become a CEO, right? So the point is that the assumption was that the people that own the companies will be safe. And this is not necessarily a technological thing, it's a legal framework. Since some things are supposed to own things by law, then those will be safe because they will have control over the technologies, right? But even now, the European there's a European body that is actually debating on giving rights to machines, mostly in terms of liability, in case they mess up. But that means that we'll also be able to own assets and control them. So even that's getting disrupted, and we really have to be careful about that. So this is the shelf life of companies in the 500 Fortune 500. It's been collapsing from 90 years in 1930s to 14 years in 2010. That's eons ago. Like God knows now. And so what? Let's make the picture even rosier. AI will create new jobs. Just like the steam engine and electronics, created all these fantastical and weird jobs. AI will create new jobs, mostly related to servicing AI. But the point is that there is a chance now, since intelligence itself has been disrupted, not anything else, is that AI may actually be better than us, even at doing the new jobs. So what are we doing then? This is pretty weird. More exponential accelerators. This is actually to make you even more optimistic about the future. There's things that are going to make a vertical cliff even more vertical. I don't know if that's trigonometrically possible, but we'll see. There's like all these machines, ChatGPT and other LLMs and whatnot, are actually run on general purpose machines that could do anything. We can actually design special purposes hardware, just like mining Bitcoin. Back in the day, they were done on normal CPUs, and then they found out that they could actually engineer chips that can just do that, and they do that much better. So that's actually in the works. Then there's quantum computing, which can actually accelerate computing in esoteric ways. And they're actually coming faster and faster. And they can also increase the level of stochastic noise within the data, which is actually what separates humans, the level of consciousness, from machines, which are a little bit more deterministic. So they will actually be able to inject a quasi-actual consciousness in machines. Room temperature superconductors, not many people know about this, but this can be the next GPT, meaning the next general purpose technology, that there's basically superconductors now that can be brought down to very low temperatures with high pressure. And they're really coming. That will make machines even tinier and even more effective, right? Then there's the Internet of Things. Anything that is electrified can be made intelligence, said. Like now there's even kettles that are connected to the internet somehow, for some reason. There's blenders, there's drills, there's anything. They will be able to collect data about how human interacts with the world and be able to learn and reverse engineer anything and everything about the human condition. And then the recursive self-improvement, right? The fact that at some point there's an escape velocity. Well, the machines will be able to engineer machines themselves and keep improving, and this can really take days, a week to reach AGI and beyond AGI. So this is the Bostrom's hard takeoff phenomenon for those that want to read more into horror shows, sci-fi books. Anyway, this is what Alan Turing said in 1950. That's a long time ago. Once the machine's thinking methods have started, it will leave us feeble powers far behind, and we should accept the machines to take control. So we really have to take this seriously. So, but AI, is AI really truly conscious? You know, this mass of electronics and silicon and whatnot. You know, we have actually no idea what's happening inside LLMs. Funnily enough, we understand more the brain than LLMs, because there's this kernel of learning that we've built and we understand, you know, adequately enough. But then there's like this gap between all of the layers of the neural networks that are completely obscure. There's just like almost magic, and stuff just, we actually don't understand them, and that's an issue. What we can't understand, we can't really control. And does it even actually matter? If you're chased by an automated drone that spits flames and lasers at you, would you really care? Is this thing really conscious? You know, maybe it won't really matter whether it's conscious or not. And then, are we even conscious? You know, that is the big question. You don't really know whether the person next to you is conscious. You're just assuming due to his or her behavior with you. So, you know, you don't actually know whether anyone else is conscious. You're just making assumptions on behavior. And if the machine is able to do such and such and such, you may just safely assume that that thing is conscious too. Because, you know, everybody says, that thing is not sentient, that thing is not conscious. But then you ask them, what is sentience? And then there's this long gap and awkward silence, and nobody knows. So it's actually, yeah, so that's an issue. So what is consciousness? I can't really dwell on this, we don't have time. Basically, there's too much information in the air. If you were to listen Wi-Fi, radio, waves, or see gamma rays and UV, you'd just be seeing noise. You wouldn't be able to operate. You need to condense everything in a way that is outcome-oriented. And then we call that consciousness. But that really is 0.001% of all information available. It's basically a functional hallucination that you use to make some kind of adequate predictions. Altered states of consciousness is basically trying to deviate that in a way that is not evolutionarily selected. So a lot of people that throughout history would have been born just tripping balls all the time, like on LSD. They all died. They exited the gene pool, and that brought us to a point of having ordinary waking consciousness as selected. Psychedelics can help you actually tap in those exotic spaces. And that brings us to one of the reasons why Loic wanted me here. Is that I've used my own body, as well as the labs and academia, as a lab. I've taken 100+ obscure substances, from psychedelics, dissociatives, deliriants, sedatives, stimulants, solvents, you name it. You know, it was my passion project that I probably took too far, but it's somehow become a profession that I hope will never be automated, because God forbid what the world will look like. But yeah, I've also tapped in other strange things like crazy meditations, tantric practices, fasting, and extreme sports. And this has really given me a breadth and depth of understanding of a consciousness, but also what it means for at least my N of 1 human. And yeah, these are psychedelics. Don't have time for this. They press receptors in your brain. They control the symphony of consciousness, making you see the world in a different way. There's a lot of them. Natural ones. Then there's like synthetic ones. I've tried most of them. They are pretty strange, and they really tweak things in very exotic ways. These are all the different classes. You can Google this or ChatGPT this. And developing psychedelic pharmacology. Now I'm going to have to speak like an horse-race commentator. They are exploding. They are exploding. There's more papers coming in and out of any kind of labs, and more psychedelics. They just keep coming. There's now more than I can ever ingest and preserve any kind of semblance of grace. And trials. They've been thrown at many more people other than me for all sorts of indications. These are layers of acceptance into clinical trialing all of the way into the blue, which is accepted. For now, we only have ketamine and psilocybin and MDMA only in Australia. Yeah, these are the things. There's even devices being trialed. I'm advising a company that is trying to devise like one of those insulin pumps that you have here, and it's just constantly injecting things, but with psychedelics. I'll let you know how that goes. Anyway, what does psychonautics look like then? You know, how are we going to do this? This is me in one of the trials being injected with DMT with a pump. for half an hour. So you're basically for 45 minutes in breakthrough. It's a little bit like having a DMT pen taped to your mouth for half an hour with no way of escaping. It's basically like an alien abduction simulator and pretty much a bad trip machine. And at least one and another participant, at least we are the only people who actually enjoyed the experience. We lost at least half of the participants. Nobody died, but I don't know what happened to them afterwards. And anyway, many of these things really can let you go deep into the mind. And why would you do this? All right, this is part of my work, as I've also trained and coached many founders and CEOs to harness the power of psychedelics and altered states for their business and personal development. And many of them seem to be still alive and happy enough. Why would you do this? All right, I think I'm going to go over time for 1 or 2 minutes just to really stress the point. Psychedelics are very important for a number of reasons. They can help us build a better symbiotic relationship with machines, because we are really not equipped to compete with their computational power. But psychedelics can augment many of our faculties, sometimes with errors, but while safeguarding our agency, because it's very important. To machines, we have lost a lot of our abilities. Even ask a teenager to get anywhere without Google Maps. It's going to be funny. Really, like once I walked from South London to Bristol, just on a whim for a laugh, and this was in 2005, and I only did it with a World War II wrist compass from the Bulgarian army. And it actually worked. Like even now, thinking about doing that makes my brain explode. That was possible. A lot of people just did it forever. Now instead, people are basically disabled. They can't do it. So this is to counter techno dependency. This is not dependency from techno music, which I'm affected to myself. It's more like the machines are actually better at doing everything than us, right? So we need to really step it up. And we have to reactivate dormant human faculties. When I stayed over a week without water, I felt my body really reactivating things that I didn't even know existed, that were deployed commonly enough throughout history. It blew my mind. It made my life tangibly better. And creativity, lateral and disruptive thinking now is really vital, since the machines can really come up with the most exotic of solutions to everything and anything. Nature connectedness. A colleague of mine, Sam Gandhi, just published a paper, you can Google it, Psychedelics, Nature Connectedness. It seems that psychedelics make us care about nature more. Lo and behold, that may become very important. Radical empathy towards panpsychism, for those of you that know what that is, seeing consciousness in everything, from plants to dogs, raccoons, and glass and rocks. Psychedelics can also do that, especially Salvia divinorum. I gave an entire lecture on this. You can Google it, Salvia, Jack Allocca. It's a particularly jarring one, so prepare yourself. But that psychedelics can really help you see life in things that usually you wouldn't think have life in them. And that's very important, since these blocks of silicon and glass and metal are now exotically alive. Emotional intelligence is really upgraded by many of these substances. Speed of adaptation is basically everything now. Like, you'll literally need to rewire your identity in a split second. Like, your career, built over decades of degrees and courses and things and conversations, becomes irrelevant overnight. Imagine you spent 30 years mastering, translating from Dutch into Aramaic or Latin or anything completely weird, like Mongolian. I said, oh, it was very exotic, it's going to replace me. Well, now you're basically, you're gone. So, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to basically retrain yourself to be an automated drone engineer within weeks? Psychedelics can also help that. Like, it's not easy. Disclaimers, it's not easy. But if you really want your identity to be annihilated and prone to change, we have the technology. Polymathy, that's very important. Being able to do many things at once. Psychedelics can help you be very diverse at the level of mind. Being able to care about a lot of different things and have the cognitive flexibility to be able to amass information from different streams of knowledge. And I took this to absurd levels, from mathematics to biology to traveling exotic countries. I even had to learn English at some point. And I couldn't stress this enough. You can't be a specialist anymore, because AI is amazing at mastering that one thing. Now you have to be a generalist, a polymath. Nonlinear connections and synthesis is very important. You can't just make linear problem solving now because AI crushes that. You need to make very wild assumptions about a lot of things. There's nothing better than psychedelics for that. T-shaped skill set, don't have time for this. It's basically like being very good at one thing and good enough at a lot. That is a lifesaver in many ways, and I encourage it more and more, and much more and more and more and more. So this is a conditional creativity. I don't have time for this. Entropy goes in, diverges all the possible ideas of anything that can be. Psychedelics are phenomenal at that, and then you converge. You do that with caffeine or Ritalin or meditation or microdosing, and then you just hone in on one thing. Okay, this image has been popularized enough. All those dots around the circle are brain areas. They speak sometimes with placebo in normal life. That's what evolution chose. That is good because it makes you functional and survivable, right? Psilocybin just makes everything speak with everything. It's crazy and it feels crazy. I know very well. And but the point is that is what LLMs are doing inside all the time with almost no repercussions, because worst case they crash, worst case they get unplugged and rebooted. No big deal. They're not going to jump from windows or attack and eat your dog or harass police officers. No, it's just a machine, right? So that's why humans are not supposed to do that all the time. But if you want to compete in any shape or form with AI, you're going to have to be able to tap into that place and squeeze value out. And yeah, so just like the old good Harari said, in order to keep up with the world in 2050, you will need not merely to invent new ideas and products, but just above to reinvent yourself again, and again. Now I'm done. Unpredictable futures require tropophilic humans, which means you'll have to thrive in uncertainty. You can't even be anti-fragile anymore. You can't just bounce back from arduous damage. Now you have to be able to look into a completely unpredictable future and see hope, because we're going to need that. And the only way to do that is to create a monopoly. There's no time for this. Ask me out later or whatever, or give me drugs. I don't know, maybe I'll comply. And yeah, so basically a monopoly is that now personal brands, or you being you as an amazing N of one, it's going to be it, right? It's very hard to replace someone that is unique. So you're going to have to make yourself unique. And Nicole really described it beautifully, that this AI is really forcing us to become awesome, right? Because anything that is boring and cog-like, it's annihilated by AI, right? So you just have to basically rekindle a hero's journey within you, go out in the world, actually do things, get injured, have fantastical experiences, so then you can bring them back, tell them to others and says, oh, that person is cool. I empathize with that person more than a godly machine that seems to know everything and do everything. Maybe I can't just rely on his input because it's not a human like me. So instead, awesome humans will become very valuable in an age where the machines are completely intimidating in any shape or form. So building authenticity, meaning and purpose, psychedelics are great for that. And basically return being a hero, which I don't think there's been ever a better time for. What I like to say is that you're really not paid according to how hard you work. Now this is pretty obvious. You're paid according to how hard it is to replace you. So make yourself irreplaceable. These are some of the places that I've been, if you're brave enough to look into them. There's a book chapter on some of the weirdest things I've done here, and these are my socials if you want to follow me. Thank you.
Wow, you only did 7 minutes too.
Only 7 minutes.
Jack told me there is no way I can do 20 minutes. I'm going to talk for an hour. So you only went 7 minutes too long. Break time. The break was planned half an hour. Please, let's make it 15 minutes. We have a great content just after with Yatsu, founder of Animoca, one of the largest crypto companies in the world, billions of dollars. Yat is a visionary, coming from Hong Kong. TED Talk 2 weeks ago. Be there. 15 minutes, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jack.